Marina Alex is an LPGA Tour player, multiple-time winner on the LPGA Tour. She's had 224 starts on the circuit. She was a member of the 2019 United States Solheim Cup team, 31 career top tens, Vanderbilt alum. She's fifth on tour in driving accuracy last year. Get this, 83.5% over the entire season. That is insane. Marina, what's going on? How have you been?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm okay. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. How are you?
Good. I'm doing well. The body is strong, though. The back is good?
Yes. Knock on, well, I don't have a lot of wood in here right now, but knock on that, everything has been really kind of, like, I guess for the good part of a year, everything's been pretty solid. So I'm hoping that kind of stays on track.
Yeah. When you were kind of at the depths of it, the deepest valley of hoping that all of that would come back and you'd get healthy again, did it go through your mind that you might not? Did it start to go through your mind that you might have to find another path?
Definitely. And I think the hardest part of that was it kind of overlapped with the COVID year. So it was a little bit of like a double whammy in terms of not playing a whole lot, but not really, I couldn't play that much. And it was a bit of a struggle. You know, I was home quite a bit, but I also wasn't really going out and doing a whole lot either way. So I think that was kind of definitely a bit of an isolation solitude period, but I think it always crosses an athlete's mind when they're dealing with any kind of an injury. You just don't know what the future holds. You know, it may come back and you may be at full strength again, or it may not be. I mean, that's kind of just the unknown of what lies ahead, and you work towards getting back to whatever was, I guess, you know, before the injury. And it's never really the same, but I think you start a new baseline and you start a new feeling of what is a good feeling for me, and where am I going to be, you know, in terms of peak strength and performance. And I mean, after a couple of years of working hard on that, I feel like I've found that, and I don't want to jinx it by any means, but I'm hoping that that's kind of where we stay.
Do you ever think, Marina, about the road less traveled, that where you would be if you weren't a professional?
Sometimes, but it's getting harder and harder to kind of figure out what that road would have been. You know, I'm in my 11th year on the LPGA. I played a year on the Epson, so that's 12 years as a pro. And then my 4 years of college golf were kind of all in, I feel like, the pursuit of professional golf. So, you know, now that I'm 12 years into this, I'm not really sure. People ask me that question and I'm like, I can't really comprehend like what my life would be had I not been doing this profession for so long. You know, maybe if you had asked me that when I was in my first couple of years on tour, I might have had a better sense of, you know, things that I was interested in and what I liked. You know, I always felt like when I was in school, I started to study economics. I didn't really follow through with that. It was a little harder than I could have imagined, just with class scheduling and staying on top of studying, that, you know, maybe I was going to do something in the finance world, but I look back on that concept now, and it's like, that feels so far removed for me. Not saying that may not be something, you know, that the future may hold, like down the road. I have no idea, but it's really hard to picture my life in a different way.
So when you talk about that, you've been out there for now over a decade, and you think about a young Marina Alex coming out of school, scarred from her economics education efforts.
Yes.
If you could go back in time and you could give advice to your younger self at that point, in your early 20s now, trying to make it as a touring professional, with all the experience that you've had, whether it's good or whether it's bad, what advice would you give?
I think maybe to just slow down a little bit. You know, in my first few years, I felt like the performance anxiety and the pressure to, you know, keep your card, but to do well, to kind of prove to yourself and to your peers that, you know, you belong on tour and that you are a good player. I think that kind of occupied a lot of my time in my first few years. I always felt like not that I doubted my abilities, so to speak, but I felt like I needed to provide results to kind of back that, to show that, you know, it's not a fluke that I play well, you know, in these events, or that I am And I think that I look at my career and, you look at 31 top tens, I think that kind of consistency, shows a little bit for itself. But even after I won in 2018, I was like, okay, I mean, it's great. It's amazing. You're never going to trade a win for anything. And a lot of players go through their entire career and they never have a win at the highest level. But for me, I was like, is that going to be the only win? There's always that doubt. And I think if I could go back and tell myself some things, it's to not let that kind of doubt, negativity, however you want to look at it, kind of propel me. And I think in some ways it did. It was motivating, but it's kind of like a hard thing to carry around. I just feel like you're constantly trying to feel like you belong where you are. And I think I would have probably enjoyed a little bit more had I not been so concerned with some of that stuff.
When you use the phrase doubt in your confidence level and everything that it impacts, are you naturally a positive person? Were there times that you felt kind of victimized by circumstance, or where do you stand with that in how it manifests itself in your golf game, of course?
Yeah, I think I kind of sway towards the tendency of not being positive. I think I'm a very realist and I'm a pretty pragmatic person. Like if I look at, let's say I'm looking at, some of the best players in the world and what they do well, even now, from like an ability or a skill standpoint, like I'm not blind to the fact that there are some things that I just cannot do, right? With a golf ball, and some people can, and that's incredible for them. I'm not necessarily saying that like I look at that as a negative, but I also look at it like realistically with what I'm limited to, and then what I've been trying to do in this off season, which I feel like a little glimpse of that has come successfully, is like not take those limitations and turn them into, maybe I'm not going to do as well all the time. Like I'm trying to use what would be a limitation. Let's say, like, for instance, distance off the tee. Like I just don't hit it as far as a lot of players do now. And especially as the younger players are coming out, the game is just getting longer and longer. We see it on the men's game, and it's definitely apparent in the women's game as well. So instead of looking at, okay, I have long clubs into most of these holes, how am I going to get really, really good with that? So I'm trying to rescript some of what I would maybe consider like a negative, or just like, a hurdle that I need to jump, trying to figure out how I become very good with the clubs that I have in hand often. And the stats may not show that, hitting a 5 hybrid or a 4 hybrid is going to be better than an 8 iron. So, but I don't really have the option because that's the clubs that I have in. So it's like I really need to become more kind of control and like kind of own that, I feel like, in the sense of my game, and be a bit more positive, optimistic, and confident in that I can hit those shots well. And I think there's been some maturity and some growth and some change and just how I am looking at myself and my career versus maybe how I did, 4 or 5 years ago.
Do you think it's healthy now that we talk more about professional athletes and mental health and what you're
Definitely.
thinking and how you're thinking and going out and getting the help that you need to go down the pathways that you want?
Absolutely. I mean, just in a small little microcosm of itself last year, the win in 22 was amazing. And that was kind of like a very, it just felt like a full circle moment. 2020 was a very low year for everyone, but, dealing with not playing, I think I played 4 times in that whole season. And I came back in 21, and I was really proud of like just being out there competing and getting through a full year with really no setbacks. But I knew that my game was, really rusty even throughout the entire season. I just felt like I never got the competitive edge that I was kind of looking for, that I had, prior to COVID and all that. And so to get a win in 22 was like incredible. And I felt like it was a lot of work put into that. And then it was okay, a goal has been reached, but then it applies like an insurmountable amount of expectations. And I'm definitely one that has a difficult time kind of managing those expectations. So I think that at that point I was like, oh wow, Solheim Cup is like a possibility again. And then it went down the expectation route. And and it doesn't really manifest itself initially. That whole rest of the year of 22 was solid. But then once 23 started, I was like, okay, it's crunch time. And I could see myself, but I just couldn't really get out of my own way from a performance anxiety, from pressure to do well enough to make the team. It's like I felt like if I gotten there, I would have been it would have been great. It's not so much the nerves of competing in the event itself, it's the act of getting there and qualifying for it. And I think that really took a hold. I played poorly from midsummer, like all the way through September, and then at that point it didn't even become about Solheim. It was like other things were kind of rearing their ugly head, so to speak, that when the season ended, as much as I was upset that I didn't make tour championship, and it was, I think on paper, probably one of my worst seasons of my career, which is a weird thing to say after a win in 22. I was kind of relieved that it was over, because I was like, I need a break and I need to redo the game plan mentally on how I'm approaching golf and how I am on the golf course, because it's just what I was attempting to do was not working, and it was making matters worse. So yeah, we're all dealing with that, and I'm sure you could pull a million golfers and a million athletes across the board, and expectations, performance anxiety, pressures we put on ourselves, they're real, and a lot of times if they go unchecked, they really can take over all facets of your life.
Marina Alex, who's joining us from a very stark background. Marina, are you home? Are you in a hotel somewhere?
Oh, I'm not big on interior design.
You don't have any pictures on the walls there?
No, I do, but I would need to walk around and show you where they are, and I don't necessarily want to do that right now. But I was just telling Don before, I do have a really cool thing on the wall, but it's in a place that I couldn't sit under. My boyfriend, for my birthday, he put together a really nice, it's like my credential and my yardage book from the US Open at Pebble. And we got a really nice poster that there was like a hand-drawn picture of number 7. And so he put it all together and he framed it, and we finally put it up on the wall, and it looks really nice, but it's kind of like in this little nook foyer area that there is no light and I can't sit under
I can see your eyes looking up to the right. Can you see it from where you're sitting?
Yeah. Do you want me to show you?
Yeah. Spin it around. Okay. Show us this thing.
Hold on. Let me just bring myself.
You hardly have any pictures up anywhere.
No, I don't have the pictures anywhere.
Oh, that is really nice.
Yeah, it's really nice. So I don't know. Let me try and get this correctly
I'm
here.
just saying it'd be a good background.
I'm like working backwards with my laugh. Okay.
Hey,
but
while you're settling back in again,
here,
83.5%. Oh, that's a really nice shot right there.
Yeah.
Did he frame that himself, or did he have that professionally done?
I'm not really sure. It also has my credential, and my one note for number 7 was, hold on, below pin.
Yeah, good advice. Good advice. You should send that out to everybody playing Pebble Beach next few days. Up to 50 mile per hour winds that they're going to be having. I was going to ask you, though, 83.5% driving accuracy. So in the last segment when you were talking to us about kind of haves and have-nots, right? That you recognize there are things that some people can do with a golf ball that you can't, but there are things that you can do, even if it's with a hybrid, that can match someone, say, with an 8-iron. When it comes to that 83.5%, the first thing that tells me, whether you're conscious of it or not, is your face being square through impact, that you have the ability to control the movement and shape of your golf ball. How conscious of you are you of that, and how hard do you work on making sure that your positions are exactly where you want them to be?
I think that, I work on that. I think a lot of golfers in general are working on that. I feel like in women's golf, the game in general, and maybe just because we're swinging at a bit of a lower swing speed overall with a driver, our club face awareness and our control, especially off the tee, is really, it's exceptional when you look at on a hole the entire LPGA, like, sure, I've hit 83% of the fairways, but I mean, if you look at the top 50%, I still don't think that number dips like very much below 75%, which is insane. And I would say on the PGA Tour, like, I mean, I don't know what the leading percentage was off the tee, but it might even be less than what our 50th most accurate LPGA player is. And I think it's just our awareness at the speeds that we are swinging is really, really high end. I mean, we know exactly where the ball is going, whether that's hitting a little draw or a little fade. For the most part, you have, pretty good control off the tee. And, the courses are long. Relatively speaking, the clubs that we are hitting in on an average are longer clubs than I would say the average PGA Tour player is hitting into their par fours in regulation. So hitting fairways is paramount. Once you're in the rough, it's very hard for most of us on tour to generate the height and the spin out of the rough, to hold greens effectively. So hitting out of the fairway is pretty essential to having a good scoring day. And I mean, for the most part, I still feel like our fairways could be a touch narrower on an average on the LPGA, not necessarily in the major championships. I think they're really, they're laying out that course correctly in terms of fairway width and the height of the rough and all that to make it a challenge. But I even feel like on a week-to-week basis, we could pinch our fairways in a little bit and really kind of maybe differentiate a little bit from who the really good drivers of the golf ball are and who maybe are okay drivers, but the width of the fairways still afford them shots, into the green. But I mean,
Go ahead,
sure.
Marina.
Go ahead. No, it's okay.
Interrupt you.
No, it's not really that important.
Do you feel? This is why we love Marina. Do you feel that the LPGA is in a good place right now? Is it in a better place, say, than when you joined it?
I think so. I mean, the level of competition is outstanding. Probably the best I've ever seen in the last 11 years. And I think that that's only going to continue to become better with just the young players coming in, players off the European tour who have really been superstars, players from the Korean LPGA and the Japanese LPGA. They come over and they're ready to play no matter what tour they're coming from. There's really not a big learning curve. We're seeing really strong results from our Epson graduates straight out of the gates. Austin Kim, who's a recent Vanderbilt graduate who played a year or two on Epson. She had an amazing top 10 finish last week, and that's her first event, of the season as an LPGA player. I mean, that's pretty impressive. And, we're seeing a lot more of that. And I just think the competition is the best that it's ever been. I mean, the event last week was incredible. You have Nelly trying to win in her hometown. Lydia's attempting to get that last point for the Hall of Fame. You can't really script a better storyline than that, if I'm being honest. And I think we're going to be seeing a lot of that this year. It's nice to see Lydia playing well. So I think like all of those, we have these young stars, Lilia Vu and 4 wins last year, Celine Boutier and 4 wins last year. I mean, we haven't really seen multiple winners on tour, that powerful in a while. Jin Young Ko definitely over the course of years, and Lydia over the course of years have provided multiple win seasons, but it's good to see, 2 different players also providing that last year. And I think we'll definitely be seeing a lot more of that.
Do you think, Maria, in any way, has the women's game been given a bye? And what I mean by that is, if you look at, for better or for worse, the barbs and arrows that the men's side of the game has had to deal with the potential association and then the association from LIV with Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund. The women's side of the game has the Aramco series that is coming from that same fund. But what I wonder is, on the men's side of the game, the critics will say, well, this is about greed. On the women's side of the game, are they getting a buy because the women's side of the game, so-called, needs the money? Where do you fall on this?
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, I think we still definitely need to improve upon our purses exponentially. There are some events that, and then not necessarily event in specifics, but more just if I look at total, a purse that when I started on tour, and there are still some events that purses are maybe have only grown 200, 300, $400,000 over the course of 10 years. I'm not saying an individual event specifically, but I'm just saying events that are popping up on the schedule. I still think the bar needs to be set a fair bit higher. So it seems like Aramco is kind of pushing that a little bit. The event that is going to happen in Saudi in a couple weeks, I believe, will be played for $5 million. I don't know if it's increased from last year, but last year it was played for $5 million. That is a big purse for a regular event that's not a major championship. And the whole politics of it is super tricky, and that's not really something that I want to really get into. But I think if we can look at it as a way to kind of push the purse envelope, I think that's probably good and healthy across the board. I think we need to keep kind of striving to be playing for more money outside of the major championships. The majors have really stepped it up in the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, it's been exponential growth, and it's been incredible to see. Playing for a $10 million purse at the US Open, that's it's incredible. And that's where it needs to be, and that's where it's like the baseline is set, and I think that's only going to continue to go up over the next 5 years, 10 years. But I really think it's the kind of the remaining core of what we're doing that kind of needs to get pushed up. And we see what Terry Duffy with CME Group did at the Tour Championship at the end of the year. I mean, and he's been doing that for a good portion of almost 10 years now, with first place prize money being something that we had never seen in any major championship. And so he kind of set a bar there that, the rest of the events need to follow. And I think it's great that we have our 5 majors, our tour championship. I would really love to see a few more events, kind of in that ballpark, whether they're equivalents of a World Golf Championship or something along the lines where the girls are playing for big bucks that it's outside of a major championship and it's outside of our tour championship. And I think that would garner a lot more attention, to the sport itself, to the LPGA, to women's golf, all of that. And I'm sure we're getting there, but I still think that, the Aramco thing, yeah, it's tricky, but I do think it's pushing the envelope in terms of the amount of money needing to be played for.
All right, we only have a couple of moments left here, Marina, but I do want to ask you about your sponsors. It's our way of saying thank you for you coming on the show, so you can say thank you to them.
Yeah, so I mean, I have Pilot Pen, who has been my sponsor since I turned pro, basically. So we're going on year 12, which is incredible. UKG has been another sponsor of mine for, I think we started in 2019 or 2020, and they're an incredible group to work with. I absolutely love the company, love everything that it stands for in the essence of pay equity. That's a huge platform for them across their employees, but in sport as well. Christina Thompson at Golf for Her, she's been outfitting me for the latter part of 12 years as well, and we have an unbelievable friendship and relationship. She's a women's online retailer of golf clothes. So you can go online, there's 30, 40 different brands. You can shop how you want. It's super easy returns. It's a great way to shop without needing to go into a pro shop or a Dick's, etc. And I also brought on a new sponsor last year. Cove Risk Securities is an insurance firm outside of Boston, and their main man, Rich Flaherty, has become a really good friend of mine. He was actually just out watching a little bit in Bradenton last week. But I have a really great team around me, and I'm super happy, just with the long-term relationships that I've had with my sponsors and, the new ones that I've developed in the last few years. I think overall, I couldn't ask for better people to be around me.
And we cannot ask for anything more than for you to come on, join us every now and then, Marina.
Thank you.
Because we smile. It's awesome. We wish you the very, very best as you head on down the road. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much. Have a good day. Thanks.